Hello, everyone. Let's have a bit of a recap before we move on to the next lesson in this educational technology course, just to help you manage your own learning. We started this course with the study of the fundamentals of educational technology by understanding the different learning theories that influence the way we interact with technology and the way we use technology in designing the teaching and learning process. So we've talked about behaviorism, which is one of these learning theories, that learning happens when there is some sort of a conditioning. These are the foundations of what we know as programming today. Because when we talk about behaviorism, it's really a programmed experience. Because the theory supposes that learning happens when there is a repetitive action that helps one develop a habit. So that's a theory of behaviorism. The next is constructivism, totally different from behaviorism, because here in constructivism, it really supposes that learning happens best when there is interaction, when people make sense of their experience and interact with one another and extract the lessons from these experiences. And that's why it's called constructivism, because they construct meaning from their experience. Like, for example, collaborative learning, cooperative learning, they're all founded on the theory of constructivism. And the next theory is the theory of cognitivism, which is actually the science of thinking, the way we think, the way we acquire knowledge, is the foundation of, for example, the tools that we use, the frameworks that we use to design not only the learning experience, but also even our assessments, like the Bloom's cognitive taxonomy. And then we also have the cognitive load, which was our topic just last week. The next theory is the theory of connectivism. What it is that it also supposes that learning does not only happens among human beings, but also happens in computers, which is true, because actually, if we look at our environment now, in the era of fourth industrial revolution, we have now artificial intelligence. And these theories actually continue to redefine education. Which is so far different from what it used to be, the traditional type of instruction where the teacher is the center of learning in a classroom type of environment. If you notice, especially during this pandemic, we are all learning, we are all teaching, and our students are learning from home. So they do their tasks at home, and that happens because of technology also. So that was the gist of our discussion on the first week of our lesson, the fundamentals of educational technology, or the learning theories. By the second week, we talked about the evolution of technology and the evolution of the concept, or the very definition of what we call educational technology. So we learned that there are four aspects to the when we talk about educational technology, we may refer to four major aspects of areas. We talked about educational technology as the theory and practice of learning approaches. We talked about educational technology as the instructional materials, or the tools and media that we used for instruction. Educational technology may also be for the learning management system, or educational technology may also be in itself a field of study. Like, for example, when you talk about computer studies, or when we talk about information communications technology. So that was the gist of our second week. And then last week was our third week, where we talked about the cognitive load, that there are actually ways we acquire knowledge. There's actually such a thing as a working memory and a long-term memory. The working memory is that aspect of our cognitive architecture where that is dedicated to using our mind into assimilating or trying to absorb the information that is being presented to us at the moment. So this is the part of the brain that helps us understand new information, the working memory. And then the other part of our cognitive architecture is the long-term memory, which is responsible for everything that we have learned in our lifetime. So this is where our schema is in our long-term memory. In activities where there is what we call the low level interactivity, that's easier to be absorbed in the working memory, because in activities that require low level interactivity, it only requires simple cognitive tasks like only remembering tasks or understanding, even up to applying tasks. But when we talk about higher order thinking skills, such as, for example, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, this will require access to the long term memory. These tasks would require not only the information at hand, but will require us to use what we have learned from the past and to use that knowledge to combine it with what the new things that we are learning. So when we are able to combine them and make meaning, then we are able to perform more difficult, or what we call the high level interactivity tasks. So, and then we have also learned about um, the intrinsic load. Intrinsic load means that this is the kind of cognitive load where our mind is only concerned of dedicated to acquiring new information. So when we acquire new information and our brain is really focused on the acquisition of these new information, then learning happens in a very intrinsic level. But there's also, or in the intrinsic load level, and but there's also another, which is what we call the extraneous load. What the extraneous load is that these are the information that are not useful anymore, not useful in a sense that they are not absorbed by the brain. Most of them are forgotten, they are wasted because they are not important. They are not important. So the highest level of and I would say the most essential level in the cognitive load, the kind of level which educators should aspire for, would be the germane load, because in the germane load, this is where our students are able to acquire new information and connect it with what they have learned in the past. So if we are able to create a learning experience and the learning environment that allows our students to focus on the new things that they are learning, at the same time make a meaningful connection of what they have already learned in the past, then we are at the germane level. And that's when learning becomes even more meaningful. So there you go, for a quick recap of what we have learned so far since we started our class here in educational technology. Thank you.